It was a bright Tuesday morning at Shalom High, but for Miriam Wace, nothing about that day felt normal. She had always been quiet, the girl in the back row with her nose buried in books and a perpetual anxiousness lurking in her eyes. Her classmates knew little about her family, her faith, or her unwavering devotion to tradition. Today, however, those walls of privacy were about to be shattered by the kind of cruelty only teenagers, armed with ignorance and arrogance, could muster. Walking into the cafeteria, Miriam's tray clutched tightly in her hands. She could feel the familiar eyes of certain classmates tracking her movements. Josh and Tyler, the self-proclaimed kings of the hallways, were already plotting mischief. Their laughter carried across the room, sharp, deliberate, meant to slice through any sense of security. Miriam felt the tension coil in her stomach, but she held her head high, telling herself, "Ignore them, don't give them the satisfaction." Lunch started innocuously enough, with the usual chatter and clattering trays, until Miriam sat down at her usual corner table. That's when Josh leaned over with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Weiss, guess what we brought you today?" He held up a styrofoam container, the unmistakable aroma of sizzling pork wafting toward her. Her stomach turned instantly, and her breath caught in her throat. "You're gonna eat it," Tyler added, sneering. "Or else." The words weren't just a threat. They were a calculated attack on her faith, on her identity, on every principle she had been raised to honor. Miriam froze, gripping her tray, her mind racing through options. Say no and they humiliate me, say yes and I betray my faith. Her heart pounded, but something inside her refused to break. Before she could respond, laughter erupted from a nearby table as the bullies encircled her, cornering her like predators closing in on prey. Josh shoved the container closer, and Tyler's hand hovered threateningly over it. The cafeteria blurred around Miriam. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, a mix of fear, rage, and unrelenting resolve. In that instant, the quiet, bookish girl who everyone thought was fragile transformed into someone no one could have predicted. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Instead, she looked each of them in the eye, letting them see the fire burning behind her calm exterior. "I won't do it," she said, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. The room seemed to hold its breath. "You won't do it?" Tyler shouted, incredulous, stepping closer. "You have no choice, freak!" Josh cackled, adding, "We're gonna make sure everyone sees you eat it." But Miriam's eyes narrowed, and the air around her seemed to thicken. She had trained in self-defense, not for glory, but for moments exactly like this, moments when the world tried to crush her spirit. Her fist clenched, knuckles white, and with a motion so swift it seemed almost cinematic, she struck. Her punch hit Josh square in the jaw. The sound, loud, final, echoed through the cafeteria like a gunshot. The force lifted him slightly off the ground, his knees buckling as the taste of defeat hit him before the taste of his own blood. Tyler, frozen in shock, barely had time to react before Miriam spun, delivering a second, precise strike that snapped his jaw back in place with a sickening crack. Silence fell. The cafeteria, once a cacophony of teenage noise, now held a collective gasp. Teachers rushed toward the scene, but Miriam didn't flinch. She stood over them, her chest heaving, eyes blazing with uncontainable power. In that moment, she was no longer the quiet, shy girl at the back table. She was a force, a storm no one had anticipated. Students who had laughed moments ago now stared in awe and fear, whispering among themselves about the girl who had dared defy not only them, but the entire hierarchy of cruelty they had built. Miriam didn't wait for apologies, didn't need validation. She walked away, her head held high, leaving Josh and Tyler clutching their shattered pride and their broken jaws on the floor. Whispers followed her down the hall, a mix of admiration and disbelief, and while the physical battle was over, the emotional one lingered. A stark reminder that strength often comes from the most unexpected places, from the people who refuse to bow to intimidation. That afternoon, Miriam returned to her quiet corner with her lunch untouched, her spirit unbroken, and her resolve stronger than ever. She had learned that day that courage isn't loud, it's decisive, and it can strike with the force of truth itself. By the time the last bell rang, Miriam had become something of a legend within the walls of Shalom High. Not because she sought fame, but because she stood firm in her beliefs, proving that faith and resilience can be mightier than cruelty. And for anyone watching, anyone struggling with their own bullies, Miriam's story was a beacon sometimes. One decisive action can change everything. Don't let anyone make you betray who you are. And to everyone reading this, if Miriam's courage inspired you, if it made your heart race and your spirit lift, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of triumph, resilience, and the unstoppable human spirit. Every story reminds us that even the smallest among us can unleash extraordinary power.